So we're going to start just with a brief round of introductions of ourselves, and then we'll just go in. So Alcine and Charmaine, I'm going to ask us just to introduce ourselves, our name, organization, and then one word that describes your leadership. And while you do that, I'm going to start the PowerPoint and hope that this works too. One second. Oh, wait, hold on. Charmaine, you can start though. I'm sorry.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. I tried to be prepared and I'm still not. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charmaine Mercer. I am the Chief of Equity and Culture with the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, calling from California. My one word to describe my leadership would be fortifying. That's the word, fortifying.
That's beautiful. We can see it now, Katherine. Good job.
Great.
My name is Alcine Mumby. I'm the Vice President of Programs with Envision Learning Partners. And Envision Learning Partners, we host a leadership fellowship for educational leaders. And that is called Deeper Learning Leadership Forum. And I'm the director there. And one word to describe my leadership would be human-centered.
Beautiful. Hi, everyone. I'm Katherine Bradley. I'm a fellow on the education team at the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. And one word that I think would describe my leadership is maybe compassionate and supportive. So great. So I'm glad that you all were just able to learn a little bit more about us. I want to start just with laying out how we hope to spend our time together today. So I wanted to start with a brief overview. We're going to start with an overview of our beloved community, which was a series of convenings that the Hewlett Foundation's education team hosted with leaders from our respective fellowship programs within our portfolio. And one of those programs was a Deeper Learning Leadership Forum that Alcine runs. And we're going to share how we use the Enneagram as a tool to support leadership development. And then you're going to have an opportunity to take the Enneagram, and then Charmaine will just give us some content and context surrounding the Enneagram. And then we'll have an opportunity to learn from Alcine and how she'll share how she's used the Enneagram in her personal leadership development and with the most recent cohort of the Deeper Learning Leadership Forum. So I want to start just with grounding us in a quote from Bell Hooks. It says, "Beloved community is formed not by the eradication of difference, but by its affirmation, by each of us claiming the identities and cultural legacies that shape who we are and how we live in the world. To form beloved community, we do not surrender ties to our precious origins." I shared this because this, I think, was a quote that really grounded the series of convenings that we did. So I want to start just with the origins of the convening. So we have 5 cohort-based fellowship programs in our teaching and learning portfolio at the Hewlett Foundation. They are Big Picture Learning, which runs Equity Fellows and Ashe Fellowship, Envision Education, which runs the Deeper Learning Leadership Forum, Education Insight Center at California State University, and they run the California Education Policy Fellowship Program, and the Southern Education Foundation, which runs the Racial Equity Leadership Network. So each fellowship program supports and develops a cadre of systems leaders within education across the country. They include superintendents, district leaders, researchers, community leaders, teachers, and others. As funders, it's important for us to not only support the fellowship programming as they support and develop systems leaders within education, but we also wanted to intentionally support the leadership development of the leaders of those fellowship programs. We talk about this often, but oftentimes leaders are given titles that denote leadership, but they're not necessarily given the tools, like the time and the space and the structure and the process to delve deeply into their own leadership. So as they are supporting leaders, we wanted to create the time and the space for them to reflect on their own leadership practice and codify what and how it is that they do what they do. So Charmaine and I wanted to bring together the leaders of those 5 fellowship programs. We wanted them to build community. So in essence, we wanted to create the space for the leaders to share what they do, how they do it, and where each program is situated in the larger educational ecosystem. We also sought to support the individual and collective leadership development of those leaders. So as our beloved colleague and facilitator of those sessions says, Dr. Tamika McGlone, she says, leaders need love too. We wanted to design for the leaders to engage in collective problem solving, learn about their own leadership, and discuss tools and frameworks for understanding leadership. And one of those tools was the Enneagram. So we brought together the 8 fellowship leaders across 4 organizations and the 5 different programs over a series of convenings over 6 months. Throughout the convenings, we sought to build community by creating the context to share stories, information, and strategies as a means to build relationships and networks and to really think about that interpersonal connection. We sought to support the leaders by creating a brave space for networking and collaborative problem solving, and self-discovery via a range of leadership tools and frameworks. And then we wanted to enable their collaborative learning by using the convenings and asynchronous means to enable idea exchange and to support the leaders in their own learning goals. So Charmaine and I led a co-led a session on the Enneagram. Each fellow had the opportunity to take the assessment, and we allowed time for both individual and collective reflection on the report, and then how to use the Enneagram as a tool to increase your understanding of self, your leadership capacity, and leading for equity. So now we're going to turn to give you all an opportunity to take the assessment. I'm going to come back to the screen and stop sharing for a minute and try to get back here. Okay, can you all see?
We both put it in the chat box.
There we go. We're winning. So we just want to invite you all to take the assessment. You should have an option of 2. We ask that you take the classical assessment, and we're going to give folks just about 10 minutes. I'll start a timer, so please feel free to take that. And if you're having any problems accessing the link, please feel free to put that in the chat and we will try to figure that out. But let us know if you're having trouble accessing it.
Do you think, is it disrupting for me to talk right now? I could give like a shout out to Reginald LeGrand of the Kellogg Foundation. So you talk about full circle. I know about IREX because of Reggie. So Reggie, thank you. In front of everyone, this is how information continues to give. So this is literally, he was the one who told me about it and got the whole beloved community in motion. So thank you, Reggie.
Just want to get a sense if folks have completed it. If you can put that in the chat. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, just for the sake of, okay. Can you give folks another minute or so? Okay. Okay, we'll give you another minute or so. No problem. Okay, I know that some folks just might be completing still, and please feel free to just finish completing as you listen. Just for the sake of time, we want to just move on just so we're able just to fit everything in, but you'll have access to the link in the test afterwards as well. And I'm going to pass it over to Charmaine.
Thank you, Katherine, and everyone, as you continue to kind of reflect and think about your number as you're coming to understand it after just having read or gotten your number from the report, I wanted to share a little bit about my own personal story with the Enneagram, but also then connect it to the work that we've been doing with the leaders, and then move from there to explain it a bit so that hopefully it has a little bit more context for you. I was introduced to the Enneagram myself by attempting to answer my own kind of complex leadership question. I wanted to better understand how I was being perceived and the differential between that and how I wanted to be understood. And so the Enneagram was a really helpful tool for helping me kind of gather insight. Once I took it, I got a little hooked, I would say, and I started talking to anyone who would listen to me about it, and I just wanted to share with everyone. People started affectionately calling me the bishop of the Enneagram because I wouldn't stop talking about it, and here we are. We convened an entire group of partners together to begin to think with them about how this tool might be able to support them in their leadership. And so as Katherine shared, one of them was a convening of a group of leaders, our beloved community, of which Alcine was a part of that. Katherine, can you bring the PowerPoint back up in a bit? And during that convening, we asked some of the leaders if they could think about how the tool might be used as a part of their programmatic practice, as a part of their individual practice. And so Alcine is here as a part to be able to share, which she'll do later. But I wanted to bring the voice in of one of the participants who we have really kind of come to love and support her in her own leadership development. And as you can see here, she said after she received the report, she's referring to the Enneagram, her mind was changed. It was as a wizard or a psychic had peeled beyond my professional or even superficial exterior to the core of me. I'm an adaptive peacemaker. So to help you with that context, that's a 9. The number comes up as a 9, and it says that this person has the ability to kind of move through a bit by being adaptive. But they say, to be honest, I was first defensive and then vulnerable and then naked. And that was their reaction to finding out this number and then beginning to read about the report. And in being honest, I was able to first accept that these characteristics describe parts of my way of being and had both asset and opportunity written into them. It was for me to choose how to read them and use them, which I love because I think that perfectly captures the Enneagram. It's like how to read it and then how to learn how to leverage it and how to use it. So I want to share a bit about it with you to hopefully help you kind of understand the context. So what you'll first see is that there are 9 interconnected numbers that form a circle. So hopefully this visual helps you see it, but all of the numbers form together, are connected, and they form a circle. That each of the numbers has its own sets of habits and motivations. And I want to pay attention to or show that the numbers have little descriptors above them. So if you look at the number 9, you can see above 9, it says adaptive peacemaker. I want to flag that the numbers are constant no matter which assessment you take. You can take, there's probably at least 10 that I'm aware of, different Enneagram assessments, but the descriptions will vary. So some of them might call it an adaptive peacemaker. Some of them might call it like the different variations, but maybe peacemaker is the only word. Adaptive might not be a part of it. The numbers themselves are what's constant. Worry less about the descriptor. Different people will describe it differently, but the number itself is the thing that is the constant. Another thing to note is that everyone assigned one number, although all numbers make us up, right? So even though you have one number that is said to be dominant, you have all the other 8 numbers kind of making you up too. It's just one is said to be more dominant. And each number and type have a distinct way of seeing the world and an underlying motivation that powerfully influences how they think, feel, and behave, right? So when you think about the number, it's going to tell you about your number, and then it's going to give you like this other layer down. And what it's trying to tell you is the way you think, the way you feel, the way you move, it's motivated by some things that you're probably not likely aware of. Most people are not. Within each number, there are many stages and phases. So again, depending on the types of assessments you'll take, some of them will give you like a level 1 through 5. Some of them will give you like a level like A through D. It's some way of signaling that people kind of move because it's about progression. We're adaptable, right? We're human, right? We can change. We're malleable if we choose to be, and so it's showing that with some intentionality, people can begin to change and have these stages or phases. Some might describe it as healthy or unhealthy, right? So every number, like all of them, have like a great qualities about them, but those same great qualities, if used not so greatly, can have a painful effect. And so for every part of it, there's some healthy and unhealthy. You could talk about awareness or integration, And all of these things can change, though. The more awareness you have, every single thing that it signaled about you can kind of adapt. You will note that there's 3 centers of intelligence. So you see there's an action center. I'm going around that outer circle. There's a thinking center on that blue, and then there's a feeling center on that on those outer rings, the outermost rings. You have action, feeling, and thinking. You can also think of like the head, heart, hand is like another visual for how people kind of move. Again, we all have 3, but you use them in different sequences. Right? So everybody has like a brain, everybody has a heart, everyone has their gut and kind of has their instinct, but it's like which order? Are you a person who goes to their brain first? Are you a person who feels first? Or are you a person who kind of has like that instinct gut action that kind of pulls you? The dominant center shapes your way of interacting with others and how they experience your energy and your input. So you can see how we can all be driven by slightly different things. So the numbers are grouped together by their center. So see, there's the action center. It shows you that numbers 8, 9, and 1 are all people who, that's the first thing they do. They respond with action. They're the people who move towards action. Your 2s, 3s, and 4, those are your feeling centers or your heart people. These are people when there's something for them to think about, something that happens, they feel it first in their heart. It's like an emotional thing. And then you get to your 5s, 6s, and 7s. Those are people who think. That's the first thing they do. That's not all they do. For everything, it's just generally, and everything can break a pattern, but generally that's the order that people kind of move in. You have your trio. Each number in its respective group deals with the same instinct, but they're motivated by different things. So for example, you could have a 1, a 3, and an 8. Right, might all be driven to advance up a career ladder. I love this one, right? They could all be driven to advance up a career ladder. Well, the 1 is a perfectionist. 1 likes things to be right. They like things to have order. They like things to have sequence. So the 1 would want to be in charge because they would want to use it as an opportunity to fix everything. They would want to use it as an opportunity to make things look the way they thought that they should run. The 3 would want to do it because they care about positioning and how they're seen and understood. You see them over here, but they're feeling people. 2, the 3 would want to do it so that they could show everybody like, hey, like, look, like this is what happens when you do hard work, you strive and you get to do like great things, right? And then the 8s who are over here, and you can see the descriptor for these people are active controller, right? They're direct, decisive, assertive, right? But those are the people who are like, I'm going to do it just because you can't make me. You can't stop me. So I'm going to do it. And this is, and let me show you. Those are the same, people. You could see this set of outcomes being driven to this top position, but they're being motivated by different things. So that final outcome might look the same, but what drives people to do that is where that can end up looking a little bit different, right? So then I'll give you a couple other things just to help give you some context. And I'll share with you that I'm an 8, an active controller. You have wings, right? So for every number, there's wings, and they are doing the same things that they do with birds and planes, right? They kind of keep us grounded. They keep us connected in a way. So as an 8, my wings are both a 7 and a 9. So at different times, you can see the way I move in the world is also about trying to keep peace. Like as much as I am active and decisive and direct, there's a part of me that also wants things to be harmonious and peaceful, right? But then there's also this kind of random, optimistic, like spontaneous part that can drive me in different ways. I think when I'm more active, I move towards like my 7ness in a bit, but everyone has their wings. So you find your wings by looking at your numbers, and then you look at the 2 numbers on the left and the numbers on the right. They both influence and complement your behavior. And then the last set of numbers that I want to flag for you might be what called like your stress point, or like your points of relaxation or security or assuredness. Again, different words, different phrases. So you're like, Charmaine, what does that mean? Well, it says like we're humans, we have these numbers, but when you're in different states, some of these numbers become a little bit more active than others, right? So an 8, when 8s are under stress, and follow me in this line, they go here to being a 5. They're cerebral, they're private, they're curious, they're detached. So what does that look like? Well, when Charmaine's like, I don't know what else to do, I've kind of shut down, discourse has stopped, she stops talking, she's sitting in a meeting and she's really quiet. It's like the lights are on, but no one's home, right? Well, conversely, when life is good and I'm feeling all warm and the sun is shining and, hey, I'm caring, I'm generous, I'm friendly, and I'm warm-hearted because I moved to my two-ness. So that's how if you find your number, whatever your dominant number, you follow one there, and then you follow the other one there. You could be a 9 and you would do that, right? You'd go down to those two numbers. So pick any number and then follow those triangular points. That's what gets you kind of to your stress and your relaxation points. They can be converse. They don't have to be the way that they say. So you can always know that. Let me move on, Catherine. I want to be mindful of time in case people have questions. The next one, these are subtypes. So for every number, there's a subtype. The subtypes give you a more granular view. If you thought about it, you could see yourself kind of hovering down to better understand. There's 3 subtypes. You could be a self-preservation one, right? Self-preservation are people who focus on physical survival, safety, material well-being, and security. Behavior is shaped to avoid danger and maintain basic sense of enough resources. There's a social one. The behavior is shaped by being communal and getting along with the herd, kind of really about relationships. There's an emphasis there. If you're a social, whatever your number, so look, you can be a self-preservation 1, you could be a social 1, you can also be a one-to-one 1, right? Which is focused on quality and status of relationships and a sense of well-being, but it's at a much more individual level with other people, though. That's the difference with the one-to-one. There's another one. In the self-preservation, it's just you. There's just one. In the one-to-one, we bring in like a little bit more intimacy with small numbers of people, and you can see where those people might show up over there. It's important to note the variability between the numbers and the subtypes, the dispositions, and because the dispositions and characterizations are really stark. So I like to tell people, when you look at an 8, for instance, at its most healthy, unhealthiest state, you have 8s who are like extreme dictators, because they're people who are clearly convinced that they know the answer and they believe it like emphatically, and they just don't take in any extra information. 8s also, their center is their gut. So imagine somebody who just believes, just for no other reason than their gut, that they should just do something. I mean, that could be really dangerous in a lot of settings, right? So what you also then think about, but what if you had an 8 who thought about a broader sense and a collective sense of people and how that person might consult with other people and bring other people along to inform their gut, though? They're still functioning from the gut. The 8s are functioning from the gut. That doesn't change. But how do you inform your gut so that when it's telling you what to do? Or how do you become aware that when you have that instinct, that you then go to your brain? Because that's how 8s move. They go from their gut to their brain and to their heart lab. When you have the awareness, you can figure out like what makes the most sense for you. So I'm going to stop there. And if there's any questions or anything, happy to respond.
Do you want me to check there's no questions in the chat, so should I just continue, or do we want more wait time? Okay. As Charmaine mentioned, I got to be a part of that beautiful, beloved community they created with all the fellowship leaders. And I have to tell you, it was glorious. It was in the middle of the pandemic, and it was such a bright spot to my experience until we took the Enneagram. And I have to tell you, I was in the group, I processed with Eunice, and we were gobsmacked. We were just stunned and shocked and just felt like someone had read our diaries and had read our therapist notes. It's so revealing what comes out in the Enneagram. But in that shockedness and in there was a lot of wisdom and a lot of truth in our beautiful Enneagram report. And so I run a team. It's 4 of us that run our fellowship, and our fellowship helps leaders, like nascent leaders or mid-level leaders, like new to an assistant superintendent or new to a principal role, or leaders who are in their trajectory moving up a ladder. And so we want to catch them in the beginning, because we work at the intersection of deeper learning, equity, and then liberatory design thinking. And so we have folks work on those modules to think about how they could transform systems. And so I instinctively knew this was such a powerful experience. Like I was just stuck in it, really trying to figure out. I'm a 7. I'm an enthusiastic visionary, which means I can reframe the hell out of anything. Okay. That means if you tell me it's an awful day, I can tell you something beautiful and positive about it. But that also means I avoid pain. I avoid pain, which means sometimes there's no growth because I'm busy chasing butterflies and bubbles in the field, right? And so I knew that there was something going on with that. And so I run a team with 4 people who run this fellowship, and it's our favorite project out of all of our projects. So we took the Enneagram, and shockingly, and we love our team. We love working together. 3 of us were 7s. And 1 person was an adaptive peacemaker, a 9. And thank God for Rachel, because we are out there. The 7s, we are all over the place. And Rachel's like, and come back. Let's figure out what we're going to do, because she's in action, right? And so even in that, I realized this was such a powerful tool. So we built it into our fellowship, where we paid for all of our 16 fellows to take like the $60 version. I think there's even a more expensive version, but to take the extensive one. And we paid for it, and we built it into our change management module of what we were helping, which is where they put it all together. They put the equity and the deeper learning and the design thinking all together to figure out how were they going to bring about this change in their deeper learning equity challenge in their context. And so what we did is we crafted lots of informal and formal conversations around the Enneagram and different parts of the report. We also created this workbook, which if you had access, you could see the workbook. I shared it with Charmaine, and it's through change management lens, but also just giving them prompts to think about in terms of accessing and living in their Enneagram. And then we also touch back in with our fellows to hear how did this Enneagram shift their thinking. And so this is from one of our leaders. She runs an organization that works with educators. So she's not in a school site, but she trains educators, or she works as providing professional development to educators. And here's what Joanna said. She says, I learned that as my Enneagram reinforced, as a considerate helper, some of my strengths around empathy, making connections, listening, and building relationships can work against my desire to lead for deeper learning and equity. I realized in my efforts to build a cohesive and trusting team in my organization, I can at times be overly accommodating and not push enough on what matters in working towards our vision and mission on behalf of students. And she was running an organization where she had no Black women on her staff. And so part of her deeper learning equity challenge was how can she make her staff more diverse, but also live into the promise of what deeper learning can do for educators. And she realized she's not pushing enough on the systemic structures that are not creating an environment where Black folks want to work at her organization, which means then they're not training educators who are largely dealing with Black and brown students. And so she had a big aha that this Enneagram broke open, that says she has to learn to be more uncomfortable. She has to push some conversations. And as a white woman, she has to just like lean into that. She has to not play so nice. So I just wanted to offer an example of how you can use the Enneagram, not only to like build a team and to think about how a team works, and also your own edification, as you know, Charmaine has mentioned, but also how you can use the Enneagram to really get some insights into your equity imperative or your equity stance or the ways in which you want to be in the world and in your work. So I'm going to hand it back to Charmaine and Katherine, she's the maestra. Can you?
Okay, thank you, Elsie. Sorry, I was on mute. I'm going to put a list of resources up in a minute, just for you to take a look at. Some of them are podcasts, books. Once you get your number, there's an Ennea Thought of the Day. It's like an email subscription that you get daily. It's based upon your number. It comes bright and early in the morning, and it most certainly will just give you a good piece of advice. For the 8s in the room, a very direct word of advice to start your day. So I will put that up. And as I put that up, we have a couple of minutes. If there's maybe like 1 or 2 questions that you all have, feel free to If you can, come off mute or put them in the chat, and I'll ask Wassine and Charmaine to look at the chat while I put up the resources.
And us sevens, those Enneagram thoughts just be whoo, right, bright and early, just snapping us back.
Are we seeing any questions in the chat? I can't see the chat. So.
It's hilarious. Thank you for your, thank you.
Beautiful. They say, I did both tests and turns out I'm a 3 and need external validation, which is possibly why I'm sharing. Yep. You get to laugh at yourself a lot when you live in your number. Mm-hmm.
You do. It gives you language to describe yourself, like things you feel that you never quite wondered, or like, oh my God, someone else thinks like this too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Any other final questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? We're good at wait time, so no problem. Okay, there might not be any more questions, but we do just want to thank you all just for joining us today. And I believe that our emails, I believe, are on the agenda, I believe, or somewhere, but we can also put them in the chat if folks don't mind, if there's anything that you all have questions about. But we just want to thank you all.
Yes, thank
you.
Thank
you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, KB. It's great.
Yes.
All
right. Well, thank you, ladies. And I hope that you all found this helpful.
We did. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Everyone have a good rest of the week. We'll talk soon.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
They just keep me out.